to Good morning and welcome to the BlackUSA.News morning show. My name is Donnie Glover and I will be your host this morning. We're being joined by former Secretary John King. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Good to see you.
State of Maryland come June 22nd?
June 28th, 22. Yeah.
It's just around the corner. Are you excited?
I am excited. I'm running for governor for the same reasons I got into public service in the first place. A deep appreciation for the role that public institutions can play in making people's lives better. When I was a kid, public schools saved my life. My parents were both educators, but they both passed away when I was little. My mom when I was 8 and my dad when I was 12. And the only reason I'm alive today is because of amazing public school teachers. And so I became a teacher to try to do for other kids what teachers had done for me. And I'm running for governor to make sure that our public institutions, that government can do for all Marylanders what schools did for me.
Well, I got to tell you, Mr. Secretary, here in the state of Maryland, my city, Baltimore, and gorgeous Prince George's County, both majority Black school jurisdictions, are at the bottom of the heap year after year after year. Do you think a King administration would have a special task force to address Baltimore and Prince George's?
Absolutely. There's lots of challenges that we need to take on, but also lots of opportunity. The General Assembly just passed a major school funding reform package called the Blueprint for Maryland's Future that will get a lot more resources to Baltimore City and to Prince George's County. That's a good start. I've proposed universal childcare, birth through 5. That will help our kids get a better foundation. We've got to invest in our community colleges. We've got to invest in our historically Black colleges and universities in the state. If we see education as the foundation, we can really help create paths to opportunity for folks.
Any thoughts on why both of these school jurisdictions are repeatedly at the bottom?
Look, the reality is we have systematically under-resourced the communities with the largest numbers of students of color. And it's tied to our history as a country, as you know. I'm talking to you from Silver Spring, where I live, and I'm about 25 miles from where my great-grandfather was enslaved in Gaithersburg, Maryland. And I've actually been on the property, the cabin that my great-grandfather lived in as an enslaved person, still standing on the property. So you think about that, that's 3 generations, just 3 generations ago. So those institutions, slavery, segregation, redlining, that still shapes so much of our struggles as a state and as a country, whether it's disparities in health, disparities in wealth, disparities in educational opportunity. And that's what I want to work to fix as governor.
This is a bit of an aside, but as you were talking, what came to mind was a flashback. I saw a post this morning, actually on a comedian's page, D.L. Hughley. He had Donald Trump talking about the Haitian refugees coming in, and Trump was saying that they had AIDS. He was negatively characterizing them. All I know is, Mr. Secretary, is that when Afghanis were coming here, when South Americans and Central Americans were coming here, there was not one man on horseback with a whip.
That's right. This is just racism, and it's 400 plus years of anti-Blackness, and we have to dismantle that, and we have to dismantle it in every aspect. We have to dismantle that in our criminal justice system, in our immigration system, in our housing policies, transportation. One of the first things Larry Hogan did as governor was cancel, as you know, the Red Line project in Baltimore City that would have connected neighborhoods that need economic opportunity with where the jobs are. This is all a reflection of the challenges in our history around issues of race.
Well, Mr. Secretary, couldn't Martin O'Malley, the Democratic governor before him, couldn't he have made that project shovel ready?
Well, look, we had committed almost $1 billion in the Obama administration to moving that project forward. And there was a very thoughtful community process to get plans for mixed-use development at each of the stops. Huge potential for positive impact on the city's economy and well-being. And Governor Hogan actually sent almost $1 billion back to the federal government rather than invest it in the city. And those are dog whistle politics.
Well, I'm trying to buy that, Mr. Secretary, but living in a 9-to-1 Democratic town, I see just as many criticisms, truth be told, of the Democratic Party here in Baltimore City. I mean, we have bike lanes coming through my neighborhood, and there's not one soul on a bike.
Right.
Or you look at the disinvestment in East and West Baltimore, they call it the black butterfly. But when it comes to the white L, I remember when President Obama was in office, a boatload of money came to Baltimore, but a black mayor, a black Democratic mayor, did not invest in East and West Baltimore. And this was the same mayor that ended up having the first riot happen here in 47 years. So I'm just saying, it seems more like a leadership challenge than any one particular party.
Look, I'd agree with you that neither party has done enough to change the conditions in Baltimore. And I think part of it has been a strategy of economic development that is focused on creating tax incentives for wealthy developers to build at the waterfront, tax incentives paid for by middle income and working class folks from the rest of the city. And one of the things I've talked with Brandon Scott about is the need for a neighborhood-based economic development strategy that focuses on West Baltimore, East Baltimore, that builds our neighborhoods, that invests in small businesses, that makes sure that every neighborhood has a supermarket so that folks aren't living in food deserts. Right? And that's a very different vision for how to grow the economy. It's a vision that starts with folks who are struggling and folks who are middle income rather than starting with wealthy folks and hoping it'll trickle down.
Mr. Secretary, what angers you about the state of Maryland right now?
Yeah, look, the disparities that we see, I'll give you one example. African Americans make up about 32% of the population of the state, 70% of the folks who are incarcerated. We have the highest incarceration rate for young Black men in the country. In the wealthiest state in the country, we can do better. We just haven't made the investment. You know, I was in Baltimore the other day. I was stopped at a light. Within 10 seconds, a kid was, squirting soap on the window, one of the squeegee kids. And, I looked at him and I saw in him my students when I was a high school teacher. Here's a kid with hustle. He's out here. It was 95 degrees. He's working hard just to get a few dollars. Why isn't that kid in a summer job? Why aren't we taking advantage of that hustle and saying, let's invest in that young man, give him a path to opportunity? That's a choice we're making as a society. And we need to make better choices in Maryland that make Baltimore the gem in the state that it should be. The success of the state is deeply bound up with the success of the city.
Secretary King, Malcolm X said that the most powerful entity in the world is the media. It has the ability to make the innocent look guilty and the guilty look innocent. And I would submit to you that part of the challenge here in Baltimore, in a one newspaper town, is that we don't have enough media like this independent outlet that will call a spade a spade. I'll give you an example. We hear about the squeegee kids weekly. There was a time through the summer we heard about them daily. But Mr. Secretary, in my alley, I live in Sandtown, we have hundreds, if not thousands, of white addicts that descend on the Black community to purchase heroin and fentanyl every day. But that never hits the news. What hits the news is the squeegee kids. How will you deal with such a one-sided media?
Yeah. Well, look, you're exactly right. I'm grateful to you for the role that you play. We need independent media. It is frustrating that we don't have more community-based media in the state. That said, as you describe the folks who are addicted to substances, it shows how broken our policy approach has been to addiction. As a country, we ought to be investing much more in addiction treatment, trying to help people get their lives on track. We should legalize cannabis. We should have a strategy that is designed to build healthy communities. Instead, we try to cover up and refuse to talk about addiction issues, even though we know they're real. And they're not just a Baltimore City problem. As you know, I was out in Western Maryland a couple of weeks ago. There's a very significant opioid addiction problem. But it's like we're unwilling to discuss the reality of it, hoping it would go away. But actually, we have to tackle it directly with addiction treatment, with mental health services.
Yeah, it makes me think back to when Ronald Reagan was elected. With him came Colonel Oliver North and the Iran-Contra affair. And that's when the crack epidemic took off. And back then, African Americans were incarcerated at an alarming rate. The omnibus crime bill that came with Bill Clinton just afterwards. And at the end of the day, African Americans are incarcerated in a country with only 5% of the world's population. The President Obama talked about it regularly. We have 25% of the world's inmate, and nearly half of them are Black men and women.
That's absolutely right. That 94 crime bill was a disaster. One of the things I worked on as secretary was trying to correct one of the many mistakes in that bill. In that bill, they actually banned access to Pell Grants, aid for higher education for folks who were incarcerated. So literally the day after it passed, programs providing higher education in prisons all over the country shut down. I talked to one person who was incarcerated at the time. Folks came and took books from the library and said, you won't need these anymore. And so we tried to persuade Congress to repeal that ban on Pell Grants. We couldn't do it, so we created a pilot project to allow 65 colleges to work with prisons to provide higher education in college, transform people's lives, and change the trajectory of their lives when they come home. And 95% of the folks who are incarcerated are coming home. We ought to be doing everything we can to help folks who are incarcerated deal with any addiction issues, get mental health treatment, get education, get job training, so that when they come home as returning citizens, they're able to succeed. And then we need to reentry supports, help folks find housing, find jobs, navigate the return home. But instead, we have a mass incarceration system that creates a revolving door because we don't invest in people. And it makes no financial sense, actually better for us all if folks come home and can contribute to the economy, but it also makes no moral sense.
When I got to go back to President Obama, when he was in office, there were a lot of African Americans who were critical of his administration. How difficult was it, you being on the inside, to honestly, we wanted him to have a Black moment. How difficult was it for him to address Black people's issues head on?
Yeah, well, two things. One is we had a Republican Congress for much of the time that made it incredibly difficult to advance policy. But also, we have to remember what the environment was like. Remember when President Obama criticized the fact that Henry Louis Gates, the Harvard professor and scholar, was arrested trying to get into his own house in Cambridge.
I remember that.
And there was this huge public outcry. How could President Obama take sides? And remember, he had to do the beer summit where he invited Henry Louis Gates, Skip Gates, and the police officer to have a beer with him at the White House. To me, that was a reflection of just the intense pressure around any issue of race with our first Black president, and a huge public reaction, negative public reaction, anytime the president really tried to weigh in. But he did because he knew it was right. I remember when he talked about how Trayvon Martin could have been his son. And so, the president, despite that pressure, he knows who he is, and he understood the importance for him as our first Black president to speaking to these issues. One of the projects that I worked on for him was the My Brother's Keeper initiative, focused on trying to help young boys and men of color be successful, and trying to mobilize all of government and work with states and cities to address the needs of young men of color.
I remember that My Brother's Keeper initiative. I remember when it came to Baltimore. Would love to hear more about it. But let me ask you, as racist as America is, Maryland has an interesting history itself. I mean, this is a 2-to-1 Democratic state, 30% black. Yet we've never had a black governor. We've never had a black U.S. senator. Maryland is no cakewalk.
Well, we're going to change that this time, because I'm going to get elected as only the nation's third African-American governor and the first in Maryland. But I think part of how we get there is we have to be in conversation with all our fellow citizens. I told you about how I visited the property where my great-grandfather was enslaved. Well, the property is actually owned by the family that are direct line descendants of the family that owned my family, that enslaved my family. And over the last few years, I've gotten to be friends with them. And we've had a lot of hard conversations about issues of race, about our shared history, about their ancestors, Marylanders who served in the Confederacy. We've got to have those conversations. I've done events in almost every county in person. I'm not going to cede Western Maryland or the Eastern Shore or Southern Maryland to anyone. I'm going to make sure that I'm talking with folks in every part of the state about our common challenges. And I think we can get to a place where we can elect a Democratic governor, our first African-American governor, by making sure that we tell our story of how we can make people's lives better in every part of the state. When I talk about something like paid family leave, people's ability to take time off of work when they have a new baby or someone in their family is sick, that resonates not just with Democrats, but with Republicans and independents too, because they have babies too. And sadly, they have family members who are sick as well.
Secretary King, it'll be interesting to see your short list for lieutenant governor.
Yes. Well, one thing I can say is we will certainly have a woman on the ticket. It's disappointing that we have 9 candidates on the Democratic side for governor, all men. So I think it's incumbent on us to make sure that we have a diverse state leadership, and that means gender diversity. So I will certainly have a woman as my lieutenant governor. Beyond that, we're still figuring out who the right candidate would be.
Now, you went straight for governor. You didn't think maybe to go for a lower position?
Well, having been Secretary of Education, when I was secretary, our budget at the Education Department was $15 billion bigger than the budget of the state of Maryland. So I come to this race with a tremendous amount of executive experience. So for me, governor is the place where you can actually work across the different policy silos: education and housing, criminal justice reform, and healthcare. You can see how these different sectors are interconnected and really lead to make government a force for good in people's lives.
One thing that with you being on a federal level, you would have good insight. What I'm getting to is here in the city, we count on money from the state counts on money from the feds, and in between that trio, there's a disconnect. What you saw on a national level, by the time it gets to the city, again, it doesn't come to where it should come, like East and West Baltimore.
That's right. We're going to change that, and we're going to have a partnership between me as governor, President Biden, and the Biden-Harris administration, and Mayor Scott, and we are going to have a neighborhood-focused strategy that's going to produce the kind of renaissance that Baltimore City long should have had.
Secretary King, tell me about climate change here in the state of Maryland. We have, from the mountains all the way down to the Chesapeake Bay. What are your thoughts on the environment?
Yeah. Look, climate change is an urgent crisis, and it is already having an impact in the state. You think about the flooding that we see regularly in places like Ellicott City. When I'm out on the Eastern Shore, you hear from farmers that they are already losing land to saltwater intrusion. When you are in Anne Arundel County, you hear from folks about the loss of waterfront property. I was in Chestertown in Kent County, where they've had storm damage their pier, and they had to move to a floating pier so that they would protect against future storms. So climate change is real. It is a problem today, and unfortunately, as often is the case, climate change and pollution are going to disproportionately affect low-income communities and communities of color. As you know, Baltimore City has some of the worst air quality in the country. There are kids missing school today because of asthma that can be tied to that air pollution. So we need a governor who will make climate action and environmental justice a top priority. We got to move our buses over to electric. We got to move our cars over to electric. We got to invest in public transit, the Red Line, the Southern Maryland Light Rail Project. We have to change our building standards, do a lot more with solar on our buildings. We got to build out offshore wind, which will be a great job creator on the Eastern Shore and a job creator in Baltimore. Think about the steel plant that just reopened in Baltimore County, because we're going to need steel for wind turbines in Maryland and throughout the Mid-Atlantic. So climate action can actually be a job creator, and it will improve our quality of life.
Mr. Secretary, we have a booming Latino population. Why would the Latino community be interested in Secretary King for governor?
Well, I will, in addition to being only the third African-American governor ever elected in the United States, I'd be the first Afro-Latino governor ever elected in the United States. What's that?
KS País.
Sí, Puerto Rico.
Barigua.
Sí, exacto. My mother was born in Ponce and came to New York City as a kid. Went to New York City public schools, learned English in the New York City public schools, a classic New Yorican story, became a teacher and a school counselor. So, and I spent time teaching in Puerto Rico early in my career. So there's an opportunity here for our first Latino governor, our first African-American governor, as I say, our nation's first Afro-Latino governor.
Well, I don't know if you made it to the Latino Festival over in Patterson Park last weekend, but there's some strong advocates. Reverend Nunez, we saw him on the news down in Texas. Also, you're not going to hear this name on the television, but Janet Arce, A-R-C-E, she's a very strong advocate for the Latino community. She helps everybody, Black, white, Latino, over in Highlandtown. She specializes in feeding people, particularly through the pandemic. Any thoughts on COVID and the strengthening of the economy despite the pandemic?
Yeah, well, look, COVID has been such a disaster for the whole country, but disproportionately for low-income communities and communities of color. Black and Latino folks have been more likely to get COVID, more likely to be hospitalized from COVID, and more likely to die from COVID, and have suffered a disproportionate share of the economic harm. We have many folks around the state who are facing eviction. Just last Friday, I was part of a sleep out that was organized by CASA, the advocacy organization. And the purpose of the sleep out was to sleep outside to show our solidarity with all the folks who are at risk of being evicted. So what we need is leadership from the governor. The governor should have kept the state of emergency in place to protect people from eviction. The governor should have fired his labor secretary and demanded that the government get people the unemployment benefits that they deserve, but he hasn't led in that way. So now we have to rely on the General Assembly to step in and try to help protect people from eviction and try to push the state government to take better care of the folks who've suffered the most from COVID. So we've got an opportunity for a great economic recovery, but we've got to focus on the folks who are most vulnerable.
You think he went too fast in trying to reopen the state?
You know, I've been disappointed that the governor didn't lead on the mask issue, particularly in schools. You know, he sort of sidestepped and said, well, I'll leave it up to every local school district to decide on masks. I think that's partly driven by him looking ahead to 2024 and running for president on the Republican side. Fortunately, the state board stepped in to put in place a mask mandate. I think we can be open, but we have to be smart about it. We need vaccine mandates, and we need mask mandates. And that's going to help us emerge from this crisis. But we've got to tackle some of the systemic problems that COVID exacerbated, didn't create. It's too hard as a small business owner to get access to capital.
I was just going to ask you about that. I saw it on the news. Black and Latino businesses have been devastated. 40 to 50 to 60% of our businesses have suffered.
That's right. That's right. We should use some of the stimulus dollars that are giving us this huge surplus as a state. We've got a $2.5 billion surplus. We should use some of those resources to help businesses stay open and to provide capital for our small business owners to grow their businesses. That's where job creation is going to come from.
So wait, we have a surplus, but people are getting evicted. I'm a little confused on that math.
That's right. This is a failure of government to do its job. Right? There's federal money set aside for tenants and landlords to deal with eviction, but the combination of the state and counties have been too slow to get the dollars out. We've got this surplus, and governor's talking about putting a bunch of it into a rainy day fund. Feels like it's raining to me. If this isn't what rain looks like, tell me what is. We ought to be using those resources to help protect people from eviction, to help address the economic damage that COVID has done.
Secretary King, I got to ask you this. Back in 1973, I was 8 years old. They shoved down our throats the Maryland State Lottery. They promised money for education. A Democratic governor came in not long ago, Martin O'Malley. He shoved table gambling and slots down our throat. Now they're talking about sports betting. All of this money promised for education, yet here in the city of Baltimore, we have schools with icicles on the window in the winter. And schools that we had to close for 5 days in September because of no air. Any thoughts on, and hey, let's throw in while we're talking about the Maryland Stadium Authority, which controls money for schools and has nothing to do with schools. Help me out with that.
Yeah. Well, look, what's happened here, and this has happened in many places around the country, is the money that comes in for the lottery or for gambling gets used to replace dollars that were already going to education. So they can say it's going to schools, but really all it's doing is replacing money that otherwise would have gone, and it isn't actually adding to the bottom line. Now, this reform package that the General Assembly passed this spring will actually add new dollars, but the next governor will determine whether those dollars are actually there. And I'm committed as governor to making sure that those resources are there. We shouldn't have any student in a school in there with hats and coats because there's no heat. And we shouldn't have to close school buildings in the summer because it's too hot. That's a solvable problem. And now Mayor Scott, would say that the city is working to solve it, but the state hasn't been a strong enough partner. The state needs to step up as a stronger partner to the city to get those issues fixed. And then we've got to build on that investment with more investment in our youngest learners and more investment in our community colleges and our HBCUs, because those are engines of social mobility for folks.
With a minute left, why should people vote for you, Secretary King, for governor of Maryland next year?
Yeah. Well, I bring to this race both progressive values, a belief that government can be doing more to make people's lives better, affordable childcare, paid family leave, better access to health care, more economic opportunity, particularly for our small businesses. But I also have the experience getting it done. I've been in government and gotten big things done, have executive experience coming from the Obama administration. So that combination of a progressive vision and the ability to get things done in government is what we need in our next governor. And hopefully we have the opportunity to have our first Afro-Latino governor in the country.
Good deal. Well, you don't know this, but my grandfather was from Puerto Rico too, Joaquin Calderon.
Is that right? From where?
San Juan. I also have some cousins in New York City, so we have to circle back on that. But thank you for
absolutely.
How can people get in touch with you, support you, etc.?
Yes. Please come to our website, johnkingforgovernor.com. You can sign up there to volunteer, to get involved, to come to events, to contribute. And I hope we're building a movement for real change in Maryland.
Good deal. Thank you so much. And thank you to Hannah, and I think it's Josh, for helping to set up this interview. We appreciate their assistance, and we thank you. And you got to come back.
I will be back. Thank you so much.
Good deal. Have a beautiful day.
You too. Take care.
Well, there's a big march going on tomorrow. We're going to bring in Pastor Antoine Burton. How are you, Pastor?
Hey, Mr. Glover, how are you, brother? Thanks for having me today.
Blessed by the best, no need to be stressed. Hey, we need a word of prayer. Come on, man. Bless us with prayer. We need prayer in the city of Baltimore. You know it like I do.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this great host that has extended the opportunity to share the vision for the city. God, we thank you for the city of Baltimore. We thank you for its residents. We thank you for its leaders even now. God, you know what we're dealing with in this city, and we know that only you can show up and turn things around. God, we thank you for bringing us together. We thank you for one mindset. We thank you for one vision even now, oh God. We know that love shall overtake anything that's taking place in this city, and that there shall be a great uprising that shall happen. God, we come against anything that's speaking negative against the city. We come against anything that wants to fight the vision. God, we ask you right now that you'll have your way, that you'll show up, that you'll lift up a standard against everything that's fighting us and everything that's released to attack us in this city. God, Baltimore shall rise again. It shall be a city of charm once again. It shall be a city of brotherly love even now. And God, we say thank you for what you're going to do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pastor, I know we're here to talk about tomorrow, but I got to tell you, Baltimore, it's hard to be optimistic, as you were describing in that prayer. Baltimore seems like the valley of dry bones. There's a lack of accountability from City Hall to the dining hall, from the White House to the crack house. One police officer, Chuck Lee, good friend of mine, said there's a lack of accountability on all levels, from the mayor to the homeless person. I know people are homeless, but here in my neighborhood, hey, just because you're homeless don't mean you have the right to throw trash on the ground. Help me out, Pastor. I'm not overwhelmed, but I'm tired. Not tired, I'm tired.
Absolutely, Brother Glover. Of course, as you all know, and you're on the front line, and you're giving folk a platform to be able to talk about what's taking place in this city. We have a lot that needs to take place in Baltimore, in the city of Baltimore. We have a lot of challenging issues and situations that we're faced with daily. I mean, every single day, we're faced with something new that we have to try to come against. But I will say, and you just mentioned about the valley of dry bones. It's amazing because in scripture, the prophet, he didn't necessarily speak to the bones, but he spoke and prophesied to the atmosphere. He spoke and he prophesied to the environment. Certainly, we're going to need, it's going to take a collective effort of just not city officials, but community leaders as well as residents, parents and children alike, to come together, to get on board, to turn Baltimore around. Too many times we expect our elected officials to do everything, which we should, but it's not their responsibility to do everything. It's going to take a collective effort for us to really turn Baltimore around. We have so many challenges in Baltimore with education, with lack of employment opportunities for individuals. I mean, there's just so many issues that we're dealing with and that we're faced with, but it's going to take a collective effort for us to be able to come together and turn this city around.
You know, I think one thing that's necessary, they should give you a regular broadcast. They should give the whole We Are Us movement regular television time, like they bring Tharu Freak Nasty Vic Naraja on television every day, telling us how we should live. They should have you. They should have Dr. Bunley. They should have Bishop Elliott, brother Andrew, Reverend Barnes. They should have a regular segment on Fox, since they like talking so much. They should have the real leaders up there speaking life. See, the media, I don't know what the word says about the media, but they keep speaking death in every instance. They speak death over our community, and we don't have enough people speaking life. And the people, Thank you. Tell them about We Are Us. I'm sorry.
So, man, you're on. I'm going to send you off because you're preaching early on a Friday morning. It's amazing because in Scripture, the Bible says the power of death and life. Notice the Scripture says death first. The power of death and life is in the tongue. And so what you speak, that seed got to manifest. It has to plant somewhere and it has to manifest. So if you have, and we're careful, we're careful of where we allow our platform to be partnered and connected with. We know we have different venues. I'll say we have different venues that release certain types of news. But if the only thing that you are releasing is the negative side of Baltimore, then that's what people are going to see. That's the seed that's going to manifest. When you release a seed, that seed has to manifest. It has to grow. So the only thing you're doing is speaking negative. Every time you turn around, you're looking at certain stations and you're hearing certain things. And it's always the negative side of things when in the city of Baltimore, we have some great things that are taking place, but folk will never know that because of what we're always hearing on the news.
So tell us about the We Are Us movement for those who may not know.
So we Our Us as a collective group. We're going into our third year now. We're excited as the collaborative effort of faith-based leaders as well as city organizers as well as community leaders from around the city of Baltimore that have come together. We have over about 10,000 men that have connected with the We Our Us movement. If you want to know more about it, you can go to WeOurUsMovement.org, WeOurUsMovement.org to find out about our organization. But we've come together, and during the pandemic, Donnie, we have been blessed to be able to serve 250,000 persons with food. We've been blessed to be able to assist over 1,000 persons with treatment. We've been blessed to assist over 10,000 men with employment. We've just launched a new initiative, a life coaching initiative, to where we're reaching out to young men between the ages of 20 to 21 to assist them with the needs. So we've come together to really make an impact on this city, not just talking, but also in our work, in our hands, and in our feet. And on this Saturday, we're excited about an event that's going to take place 3718 West Belvedere Avenue, where we're excited to be able to come together. It's going to be a job fair. We're going to have partners. Amazon is going to be with us. Hopkins is going to be with us. The University of Maryland is going to be with us. Sinai is going to be with us. And they're going to converge right there on West Belvedere Avenue. We also have some ex-offender friendly partners that'll be coming with us. So they're going to, regardless of your background, we're going to have lawyers on hand that's going to be offering expungement. We're going to have computer training right there. We're going to have resume training right there, man. It's going to be so much. And we're bringing it right to the hood, man. We're bringing it right to the city, right around the way. And we're excited to bring all those major partners right there on West Belvedere Avenue so that the people can really have access to what they need. So that's going to be this Saturday from 12 to 5 p.m., man. And we are overly excited about all of our partners and about this opportunity to come to the Park Heights community, man. Park Heights, can you imagine that? We're coming to the Park Heights community to give out jobs, to give our treatment, to really help individuals that really need it the most, to get expungements, things off their record so that they can be better positioned for higher paying jobs. So we're excited about this opportunity on Saturday.
You know, Pastor, this is baseball season, so I don't know if they warned you, but I will throw you a curveball.
Yes, sir.
Now, I don't beat up on the church too much, but I gotta say, it is refreshing to see the church, the representatives of Christ in the streets. I've seen you in Park Heights. I've seen you down on Hilton Street. They tell me you've been down the bottom on Gilmore. Why now? We've not seen this. Yes, you have your PM Smith. I remember when Bishop Elliott went to Buford and Garrison 20 years ago. It's just, why don't we see more of this from the church?
Well, it's amazing because we have a collective group, not just the church. We partner with our Muslim brothers, Minister Carlos Muhammad, Student Minister Carlos Muhammad, our good brother Andrew Muhammad, and all of our brothers from the nation. We have some of our Jewish brothers with us, some of our Catholic brothers with us. We have some of our Christian brothers with us. So it's not just one particular faith group that's come together. We have a collective group of men that believe in God, that love Baltimore City.
Including some white men.
And, oh, absolutely, including some of our white brothers. Absolutely. They come out with us week after week, Monday after Monday, Saturday after Saturday, East Baltimore, West Baltimore, North Baltimore, and South Baltimore. And this is something that we've been doing pre-pandemic. We started pre-pandemic. The momentum was building. Men were connecting with us. Then the pandemic came. We had to change our strategies, but yet we never stopped servicing the city of Baltimore. So we never really stopped. We continued to do what we do. And we just thank God that platforms such as yourself giving us the opportunity to let Baltimore know what we're doing. We were using social media for most of what we were doing to get the word out. But now people such as yourself who are extending the opportunity to broaden the work so folks that are all across this city can be aware of we, our, us. And we thank God for everyone that's been praying for us, everyone that's been supporting us, everyone that's been giving to the work that we do. Most of the money that we come up with, we come right out of our pockets, man. It's not about sitting around waiting for grant money or waiting for federal funds to come. We just believe in what we do, and we put our money where our mouths is. And we thank God that there are folk that are in high places that are aware of the work that we're doing, and they want us to be a part. They're engaging with us, and certainly we just thank God for WeOurUsMovement.org. It started about 3 years ago. We thank God for our president, Pastor Coy Bonds. We thank God for Andrew Muhammad, who you absolutely know who he is. This guy won Peacekeeper of the Year. He's our vice president. We got thank God for our ex officio, who you know, Dr. Andre Bunley, visionaire here with We Are Us. So we thank God for the leadership that we have. We thank God for Bishop Elliott, your God brother, man, who you know dearly, who's working with us extremely hard in the Park Heights community. Listen, man, these murders are not stopping, so we can't stop. These shootings are not stopping, so we can't stop. We're not afraid to go where they need us most. We're not going to just talk about it, but we're going to be about it, and we're going to go where they need us, and we have to make our presence felt.
Pastor, tell me what happens when you come through Pennsylvania and Lawrence, and people look up or Penn North, and these are clearly open air Amsterdam, wide open drug markets. What happens when a group of 100, 200 men come through to engage our young people? Explain for those who have never seen it, what it's like.
Let me give you a testimony. I'm glad you said this. Let me give you a testimony. We came through the Park Heights community, and the same thing happened when we were on Pennsylvania Avenue, and the same thing happened when we were over on Green Mountain 33rd. When the residents come out and they hear us chanting, "We all we got, we all we need," and they're coming out, man, the seniors are coming out taking pictures. One grandmother cried because she was like, "I've never seen anything like this, to see all these Black men and white brothers come together." She said, "I feel safe when you guys are here. I feel comfortable when you guys are here." And to see the young people coming, taking pictures and joining in with the chant, saying, "Man, I want to be a part of this. How do I do this?" And to see the women, man, they stopping and blowing a horn and cheering when they see all these men coming together for the sake of the city of Baltimore to come trying to bring change to the city, man. It's something about us being in the streets. It's something about us being where they need us the most. And it really brings a level of comfort. It brings a level of security to those communities that need us the most. So absolutely, man, our presence is absolutely needed. And to see mothers break down crying. We had one mother over on Green Mountain 33rd. She came out and broke down crying because her son had just came home from jail, and he just happened to be there. She came out. We embraced her son. She started crying. She said, "Oh my God, if only I would have known about you guys before he got in jail." She said, "Now that you guys are here, I'm so happy." She started crying. She tried to hug as many of us as she could. She said, "I want my son to be a part of you." And until this day, he's a part of us. He's working. He's accountable. And that's the impact that we love to make. Those are the testimonies that we love to hear from the people that us is impacting.
Now, Pastor, you also intervene in violent situations. It's called Stop the Beef. Tell us about that.
Yes, sir. So we have something called Stop the Beef, and not to really give all of the strategy, but we have something called Stop the Beef, where there's no police involvement. We have been blessed to be able to mediate between some serious beefs. They've been some murders that we've been able to intervene in and step in. Thank God that He has allowed us to have favor with some of the gang members, some of the gang leaders, some of those guys who have influence in their communities. We've been able to just come and stop some things. There have been some people that relocate until things calm down, and we thank God because we've been able to mediate in some of those situations. Have we been able to stop every murder? We haven't been able to stop every murder. We haven't been able to stop everything, but some of those beef interventions, we've been able to step in and stop some things. We've been able to talk to some of those gang leaders, those members who have influence in the street, to stop some things, and some of them are working with us. Some of them are assisting us in helping drop the violence in certain communities. Those guys don't want this happening. They don't want this taking place in their hood. So some of them are working with us. And as we continue to have this campaign called Stop the Beef, there's something that we have, the Baltimore Peace Agreement, to where we have certain gang leaders and gang members and individual of influence in those communities. They'll sign the peace agreement to keep them accountable, saying that I'm not going to murder anybody. I'm not going to shoot anybody. I'm not going to call any violence, and anything that I can stop, I'm going to do everything in my power to stop it from happening. And we're taking that peace agreement all across the city, and we have folk of influence. And that's very important that you get people of influence in those communities to sign those agreements so they can help us become activated in those communities, and they can help us to become mediators in those communities. So that's very important. We thank God for the Baltimore Peace Agreement, as well as the Stop the Beef program, which is really expanding. And Baltimore City is becoming very aware of the Stop the Beef program, and it's only going to continue to grow. We're able to go into neighborhoods and meet folk that some folk are scared to go and talk to. But we thank God because He's on our side. He's given us the strength, and He covers us when we go into those communities to bring help.
Big brother, I gotta ask you about the connection between the church and the mosque, between the pastor and the imam. How significant is that?
That's extremely significant, and I want to say this. I understand that everybody is not on this wagon. Everybody is not on this train to where they can embrace this collaborative work, and I get it. But it's going to be extremely important that we work as one to bring peace to the city. It's not about my denomination. It's not about my faith. It's about trying to bring peace and healing to the city of Baltimore. And I've got to say, man, the nation has been extremely helpful to the Christian community and showing us how to work and strategize in the streets. I've seen them work, and I'm not afraid as a pastor. I know I'll get flack from it, but I'm not afraid. Those guys have shown us, they've taught us how to go out in these communities and to bring help. They've shown us how to go out into these communities and to connect with the streets. Sometimes many of my constituents and my brothers and sisters that pastor, we pastor from the pew. We pastor from inside of the safe place. We pastor from inside of the temple. But these brothers are out there night and day, and they are showing us the way how to get it done. So they have been extremely influential. They have been extremely influential. Let me say it one more time. They've been extremely influential. And I am not afraid or ashamed to say I thank God for my nation brothers, because those guys are great examples as to what servitude looks like. They are true servants, and I love the work that they do.
Well, I got to also commend the brothers from the church. And let me tell you why. For too long, we as Black people in America, have had other people tell us who our leaders are.
Yeah.
It's quite often the people they put on television. This is what I know, that if they keep putting a certain Black person on television, that's not your leader.
Absolutely.
Your leader, if the leader isn't with We Our Us movement, if they aren't with that, that's not my leader. They can dress them up. They can take them down to Kevin Scott's Benedetto, have a dash fee and put them in one of
Kevin.
That's still not our leader. Our leaders are with you guys on Mondays, on Thursdays, and including tomorrow. And let me also say this. I've had many discussions with Christians about working together with our Muslim brothers and sisters. And in my little 56 years, I've seen a lot of progress to the extent that this We Our Us movement is even happening. It would not be as strong if it were just Christian, if it were just Muslim, if it were just Jewish. Now, I've seen the nation, don't get me wrong, the nation come through Gilmore Homes. First of all, let's be honest, a lot of us get scared.
Yeah.
Or maybe for the first time we see some order. But to see both together, it doesn't happen often. And it makes me so proud of my Muslim brothers and my Christian brothers, Black and white, because that's how it's done. But I remember time you couldn't get some church folks to be around Muslim brothers. There was all of these stigmas, and we missed the boat. And we did not miss the boat this time. I'm trying to keep it clean and fair, but we did not miss the boat this time. I'm so proud of the brothers, including you.
And Brother Donnie, I have to say this. We have a vast amount of pastors that are part of it. And I know people always saying, well, where are the churches? Where are the pastors? They out there. We have a large amount of pastors that represent the Christian community of Baltimore City. Those guys are out there. I don't want to start naming names, but we have a large base of pastors and of Christian leaders that are out there with us, making this work happen. Just to see the collaboration between the two has been absolutely amazing. Yeah, we have a large base, but we need more. We need more of our Christian leaders. We need more of our pastors to come be a part. We're not just looking to make an announcement. We're just not looking to have an interview. We're not just looking to make a speech, but we're looking to make an impact. And certainly after folk hear you on TV, after they hear you on the radio, they need to see you in their communities. And it's very important that you are what you say you are, that the things you say on TV, that you're actually doing that work. It's very important, because the moment you are not visible, but you're always heard, man, Baltimore City ain't trying to receive you. So it's very important that we're not hypocritical, but we're actually doing what we say we are. We're doing what we say we do.
Now, I need a promise from you, Pastor. Promise me that this won't be your last time on this network. As long as we have a network, please take advantage of it. We're on 7 days a week. We'll even create a show for you, a time slot for you, whatever it takes. Got nothing love for Dr. Bunley. He ought to be the mayor. I ain't got nothing love.
I say it all the time.
for Brother Andrew. Brother Andrew, we didn't even touch this. Not only is he known in these streets, but he has a prison ministry.
Yes. Second to none. Absolute. Second to none. Absolutely. This guy, he's able to walk into the prisons and they know who he is. He's able to go in and speak to the leaders in the prison who have influence. This is how powerful this guy is. So I'm excited to be a part of the work. But I also want to say I'm a big fan of yours, man. I follow your work. Baltimore, we are so honored to have you. A platform that's honest, a platform that's fair. I'm a big fan of you. I've been following you from some time now. So Baltimore is absolutely, we're blessed to have people like you that are giving folk like us a platform to really share the work the way it's being done. So my prayer is that God will continue to open doors for you, man, and that he'll just make your show become national, man. The world needs to know who Donnie Glover is. They need to know the work that you're doing, man, because Baltimore got a gem in you, and we appreciate you, brother.
Well, I got to tell you one last thing. You got a man, Kevia Fernando Elliott. We call him Kevo, but for respect for the movement, the bishop. Let me tell you, he helped save my life. There was a time I was chasing all the rock soaps and cokes that the world could sell. And he had a ministry inside the Lord's church, 5010 Park Heights, called the Free Indeed Ministry.
Wow.
And I was no cakewalk. Let me tell you, I gave them people hell. But they love me anyway. They love me anyway. Love me until I learn how to love myself. And I'm compelled. I have to give it back because, you know, that's the law of Christ. Where one is weak, the other is strong.
That's right.
Whether I'm on the Avenue or Greenmount, uptown, downtown, Baltimore, New York, you better be a blessing. Have you ever sat in the Lord's church? I can remember sermons that he's preached 20 years ago. One was real simple. He said, call up your preacher and encourage him. And everybody was looking at each other like, call up the preacher? Yeah. Don't you need encouragement? The preacher needs encouragement too. He has bad days. He has rough days. And he wasn't necessarily talking about himself, but he was reminding us of the law of Christ, that you have to practice what you preach. Like when he paid that church off after only like 5 minutes, when you got churches that had the building for 200 years and they still got a building fund. He told me that you got to practice.
That's right.
What you preach. You say right. They don't listen to the song. They watch like the youngins, the hoppers. They watch what we do. I saw y'all going to Palmer Court. Well, y'all, hey, listen, it's some hood spots in Baltimore. Hood spots. Greenmount, 24th, Holbrook, and Hoffman. When I saw y'all going to Palmer Court, certified, brother. Certified.
Hey, listen, man, Bishop Elliott, he's one of our special leaders, man. Just an average conversation with him is like you're receiving a Sunday morning sermon. You know, he got that good, strong Baptist preacher's voice. He said, wow, Brother Donnie, this is what I hear. So he's a man that's full of wisdom, and we're honored to have him as one of our leaders. But you know, we're not afraid to go into certain parts of the city. We are Baltimore, and for a lot of the guys that walk with us, some of us, and we're the reason why Baltimore's in the shape that it's in. So we don't have a choice but to go back and to change up what we messed up. So we're not afraid to go out. We're not afraid to go out to do what we need to do. But we need more men. We need more leaders. We need more servants to be a part of what we do. You can follow us at WeOurUsMovement.org. You can follow us on Facebook at WeOurUs, or you can follow us on Instagram. Again, WeOurUsBeMore. So we need your help. We need your help. We need every man out there. If you're not doing anything, come out, be a part of us. But certainly this Saturday, 12 noon to 5 p.m. Bring your young people. If you need a job, if you need expungement service, if you need something taken off your record, if you need resume training, we're going to have martial arts classes. If you need a job, come out, be a part. We have so much. We're going to have free food out there, free groceries out there. We're going to have computer literacy training class out there. Come, be a part and come experience what's taking place on this Saturday from 12 to 5 p.m.
3718 West Belvedere. So that's like Belvedere and Ricetown, a block away,
yes,
right?
Sir. A block, like 2 blocks away. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay. Now, before you go, is it true that Andre Plumlee played basketball and he was pretty good?
Well, he has that basketball player swagger. He walked like it. I don't know. I didn't heard some stories that he was nice, and then some people say he was okay, but he got that basketball swag. So I'm sure he used to do his thing back in the day. I'm sure.
God be the glory, big brother. Thank you for making my day. I hope we made somebody else. 3718 West Belvedere. To God be the glory, big brother.
Love you, brother. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. And thank you to your viewers. We appreciate you.
Yes, sir. We'll be back at 7 p.m. this evening with Black USA Crypto News with Kamal Hubbard from the East Bay Area. My name's Donnie Glover. Have a powerful day. Good morning, world.